Welcome to the Power Market Report. I'm Albert Liu. Returning to the show today is Jayant Bhandari. He's the natural resource investor and investing consultant. He joins us today from Singapore. Jayant, thanks for coming back on the show. How are you?
I'm great, Albert, and thanks for having me again.
It's great to have you on again, and looking forward to this conversation. I just spoke with Rick Rule. We're talking about the gold miners and how he sees things playing out this year. And so I'm very interested to pick your mind as well. Last time we spoke was back in January, so at the beginning of the quarter, and things have changed a lot. A lot has happened since then. We have gold making a tremendous move upward, 16 or so percent. And the miners as well, both seniors and juniors, have responded in suit. So I want to get your idea. How are you feeling? Are you optimistic about the sector in general? Have things changed for you at all?
Well, in my view, metal prices, Albert, haven't really improved as much as the equity prices might show that they have improved. The reality is that equity prices fell about 80 to 90%. So if they have now improved about 25 to 100%, it is actually still down about 70 to 80% from their tops. Metal prices are very low in my view. A lot of metal prices is still continue to make losses for the mining companies, including for the gold mining companies. So in my view, the metal prices have to improve to justify increase in equity prices going forward.
Okay, so do you think the market is pricing in a trend then? They think that this is the bottom, that the gold hit the bottom and now is coming off that.
Right, and that is always a danger of this sector when people start including optionality of metal in the equity prices. It becomes a very frothy environment for equities in the sector.
Okay. But what about the larger players, Newmont, for example? Is there a lot of optionality priced in there, or is that?
Absolutely. I mean, a lot of big mining companies are heavily financially leveraged. They haven't really shown much profit in the last few quarters, which means that they are actually might be worth zero even at the current gold price. And so they have to produce enough profit to justify the market capitalization that they have. And I don't see that right now.
Well, it's a pretty pessimistic view. Last time you were on, you were talking a lot about arbitrage in the junior space, and you did come up with a few names. I'm wondering if you could update us on some of the names you mentioned last time.
Albert, I think I talked with you about two companies, VMS Ventures, which is merging with Royal Nickel, and they have Royal Nickel came out with some very interesting graph samples from their project in Australia. As a result, their share price has done very well. It's up about 30 or 40%, or even more actually. And Starcore also was a very underpriced company, and it has done very well. It has gone up about 100%. But remember, in these kind of situations when the market is so frothy and when everything is going up, this is just another two stocks that have gone up. So I take no credit for talking about these two stocks.
Okay, so this is just gold mining beta, you're saying, nothing specific. So, did any of the events
That's right.
that you were speculating upon, did they come to fruition? Any mergers or acquisitions?
Well, VMS is still going through the merger with Royal Nickel. So that is still leaves another 20-30% upside in owning VMS. But of course, it has become a more dangerous play now unless you really understand the projects.
Okay, okay, wonderful. So, do you expect? I guess I want to know what your view is on the metal then. You seem to think that for the given price, the miners are still overpriced. What about the metal? Do you speculate at all on just metal, pure metal prices?
Well, gold is truly the best commodity in my view today. In my view, it is probably among the best space to invest your money. So I'm extremely optimistic about gold. And the reason is very, very simple. Historically, people in the Middle East and South Asia have bought so much gold because their economies have historically been negative yielding economies. And now the same is happening all over the world. The West is very rapidly becoming negative yielding part of the world, which means that there will be increased interest in gold, not only among people in Middle East and South Asia, but also increasingly in the West, where actually most of the money is even today.
Okay. Now, if you're positive on gold, tie that back to mining. What price would you have to see gold go to before you felt that the majority of this sector, or at least the senior mining companies, are worthy of the price that the price that they're carrying right now?
Well, Albert, I don't invest in senior gold mining companies mostly because they have always, irrespective of metal price, they have always tended to trade at 2 or 3 times their net present value using the spot price. 2 or 3 times their net present value is absolutely crazy valuation. So, because these companies tend to be always overpriced, what happens is that if gold price goes up, equity prices in mining will go up again. So there's just always that differential between the metal price and equity price in the gold space. So I avoid investing in the mining companies, but I still follow them because I want them to be acquiring the junior mining companies that I invest in.
Okay, understood. Okay, I want to talk a little bit about the conference that you host in Vancouver every year in the summertime. It's coming up again. I just got your email with the announcement with the speakers and registration and all that information. It's going to be a lot of fun. There are many of us that are regulars, but there are people who don't know about it or don't know much about it who I think would really enjoy something like this. So, first of all, can you tell me, why did you start this conference?
Well, Albert, my life has been a life of exploration, exploration for the truth. And what I find is that what people need to do is to connect them with the concept of reason. And this is why I started this conference. I want people to be able to reason properly. I want people to come and discuss philosophical issues that they usually do not discuss in general life. And I find it very exciting because I bring in people with views whose views are considered strange among the normal society. But in my view, those views are very, very valid views and they need to be addressed. And these are the kind of people I invite to my conference. It does very well.
In my experience, you've had, for instance, people interested in education, for example, raising children, quite a variety, considering that, for instance, you don't have children, but this is of special interest to you, I think, the whole idea of education.
Absolutely, because Albert, I grew up in a society where, as a kid, I was beaten up all the time. I was indoctrinated very, very heavily. The result was that it has taken me about 3 decades to undo the damage of my schooling, my cultural indoctrination. And as you know, I grew up in India, a very oppressive society, and undoing that damage has taken me a huge amount of time. And really the best thing you can do is to not create problems among children, not make them irrational when they grow up, and not scar their brains and make them incapable of understanding life. So that's why I invited for the last 2 years people to talk about homeschooling and unschooling and removing indoctrination from the way you think and reason.
Giant, a lot of people, perhaps all of us, are damaged goods in some way or another, but obviously some have it far worse than others. I'd like to know, in your particular case, what was critical in helping you, like you said, undo the damage. What did you find was critical in that process?
Uh, well, the best thing was, Albert, that I never had a proper schooling. For several reasons, I had to change schools about 6 or 7 times during my schooling, which meant that I never had the same set of friends, which also meant I did not have the peer pressure and the pressure to follow the general way of thinking. So I could have my own way of thinking.
Yeah, that's actually that seems to be a pretty serious problem among adults now in society, isn't it?
Absolutely. And also, Albert, my family is a business family, which means that you have to connect, you have to learn causality. You do the right things, you make money. In a business family, reason has a huge importance. You cannot exist through indoctrination in a business family. So, all these things added up helped me come out of, I hope it did, come out of extreme irrationality that I see in that country.
Okay. You told me before the interview that you had just come from India, and I do enjoy reading your Facebook feed every time you travel, Giant. You have a lot of interesting things to say, and quite often the response to your posts is even more interesting and humorous at times. Uh, on this trip, did you see anything that surprised you?
My trip to India.
Yeah.
Well, Albert, it's so many things that economic data misses. There's a huge amount of environmental pollution in India today, and it's getting worse and worse. And unfortunately, in many ways, I think, at least anecdotally, it's worse than what I see in China. Now remember, India hasn't even started industrialization. So despite industrialization, Indians have destroyed the environment. Also, personal loans have gone up hugely in that country, um, which means that although their consumption has gone up, which shows up as something positive for the economy, the reality is that an indebted society is asking for trouble in the future. I'm increasingly very pessimistic about India because of the path that these people have chosen.
I've read, reports from people saying pretty much the opposite. Not exactly the opposite. People but with more optimism. People who have identified a market that's untapped. I think Apple now is concentrating on India. They want to get a lot of their lower cost phones into that market. Uh, the market's too big to ignore. Do you think that these companies are missing something, or what are they missing, or the people, the economists who sort of have a different view than you do?
Well, for marketing purposes, it's absolutely important for big companies to have their offices in countries like India. India is 1/5 or 1/6 of the world's population, so they have to have an office just for marketing purposes or and for the public profile purposes. But also, the whole IT industry is a bit of a myth as far as India is concerned. A lot of IT work that I have seen happening in India is back office, glorified secretarial work. And even that work is already migrating to China and Philippines. So, yes, India is improving. The world is improving economically everywhere. But India is not what a lot of people think it is. But my biggest problem, Albert, is that while the world is improving economically, a lot of these emerging markets are degrading culturally. And this is a very, very dangerous cocktail. I can expand on what degradation of culture is if you want to.
Sure, sure. Why don't you add?
So, drug addiction has grown hugely in India. Health problems, obesity is rising rapidly. Uh, Public indoctrination has gone up because now you have televisions to indoctrinate people. electronics is being used to indoctrinate people. The net result is that people have become more, in my view, more constrained in their thinking. Their health is becoming worse, and unemployment is actually going up, because while these people have been removed from their farms and they have gone through schooling and university, they haven't really got trained to work in the manufacturing sector. So while they were farmers earlier, now they are unemployed and they look down at farmers. Again, young people who are unemployed are a very dangerous section of the society, even women.
Yeah, that's a good point. Jayant, I'm sorry I took you off track. It was an interesting tangent, but we were talking about your conference. I want to get back to that. What is the theme this year?
So again, the theme is different every year. That this year theme is reason and causality, and I have Dr. Warren Farrell coming as one of the keynote speakers. He was a feminist at one point of time, and maybe he won't use the word that I'm using right now, but he wants to talk about rights of men, because in the current environment and the way feminism is practiced in the world today, it seems to me that a lot of feminism is anti-men. So I have invited him to talk about men's rights. Then we have Rick Rule talking about corporate social opportunity. And he's going to talk about why corporate social responsibility is not the right way to do good to the society. Then we have Doug Casey talking about what is wrong with charity, how charity destroys the morality of the society. So these are the kind of topics we will be addressing in this seminar.
Okay, that's interesting. I want to get your personal take on that, on the first gentleman's talk, men's rights. Sometimes, people like of the libertarian persuasion, myself included, we look at these sort of minority movements, even though I guess this is not necessarily a minority, talking about all men, but these special issues, and just wonder if the problems would not be solved, would be solved if we just got away from these special issues and just concentrated on individuals. What's your take on that? Do we need advocates for men's rights, or do we just need men's issues, or do we just need advocates for individuals?
I think we need advocates for individuals, but we do need to argue against organized people who want to fight against certain other sections of the society. So a lot of feminist movement, in my view, has become an anti-men movement. So you have to intellectually challenge their position. If feminists, modern feminists, believe in equality between men and women, how come that they want preferential treatment for women? And if they need this thing in the West, where in my experience, people have very good equal rights, if they have to push for preferential treatment for women, there's something wrong about some of these organizations, and they need to be challenged.
Okay, I guess the danger is that if you position yourself as a pro-men's movement, you alienate women who are not feminists, or not at least the type of feminist that you're objecting to.
That's absolutely right. And Warren Farrell is an ex-feminist, so he is not anti-women. He is merely talking about how in the law men have lost their rights. So if there's a divorce that happens in Canada these days, it's much more likely for children to go to women rather than to men. And that's the way law works, and that needs to be corrected.
Right. Okay. Very interesting. Okay, so the conference is July 30th and 31st, the 2-day format this year. What brought about the change?
Well, too many people asking me to increase the length of the seminar, and also too many speakers. So now we have 1.5 or 2 day long seminar this year.
Okay, very interesting. It's going to be in Vancouver, the Siegel Graduate School of Business. Like I said, July 30th, 31st, after the Sprott conference, which takes place the week before. Really looking forward to it, Jayant. And is there anything else you want to tell our viewers? Any other conferences they can see you at between now and then?
Well, I'm in Singapore right now to speak at a Asia Investment Conference, and then I'm in Zurich next week to speak at the Zurich Gold Show. And I'm talking in Singapore, I'm talking about why I think India is not the next China. And in Zurich, I'm talking about why Indians and Middle Easterns have historically bought gold, and the reason why I think gold is a great place to keep some of your money.
Okay. Will we be seeing you in the U.S. anytime soon?
I should be back in the US in about 1.5 months.
Okay, but not at a conference.
Not right now.
Okay. Okay, great. Well, look forward to doing this with you again, John. Thanks for coming in and giving us this update.
Thanks for having me, Albert.
Our guest has been Jayant Bhandari. If you'd like to learn more about him, please visit his website at jayantbhandari.com, and don't forget about his Capitalism and Morality seminar in Vancouver, July 30th and 31st. Also, don't forget to visit powerandmarket.com for insightful interviews with the world's leading experts in economics, finance, and investing. Till next time, take care.